What's up guys, I'm Tim. This is New Craft Workshop, and this little series of videos that we're doing is about how to outfit your woodworking shop from the ground up. Episode 1 was about the workbench. My opinion, there's nothing more important out in your shop than your workbench. This is video 2. This is the very first tool I think you guys should buy as you get your woodworking shop outfitted, and that's going to be clamps. So let's go. All right, so today's video, I'm gonna break down the most common, I think 5 types of clamps we're gonna discuss. And at the very end, I'll show you a few specialty clamps. Now, as you look on the wall behind me, you'll see that the majority of my clamps are made by Jorgensen. They do not sponsor my video nor my channel, unless of course you're watching and you want to, but I do have some other stuff. I've got some Rockler clamps. I've got some stuff down here by Irwin, Work Pro, etc. But I want to show you guys the 5 most common clamps, what you should buy, what you shouldn't buy, what you should spend your money on, and what to save money on. So let's get started with clamp style number 1. All right, let's start with trigger clamps, because this is probably the first clamp most woodworkers are going to buy. So trigger clamps are extremely versatile. You can adjust them with one hand. And the reason they're called trigger clamps is because the way you tighten and loosen these is via the trigger. Now, most trigger clamps can be used as a clamp or as a spreader. Now, a lot of times you're not going to use the spread feature, but it is nice to know that it's there if you need it. And while trigger clamps are not the strongest clamps you're going to have out in your shop, they are going to be definitely the quickest that you have in your shop. So what are the best uses for trigger clamps? So first off, this is going to be great for light to medium duty glue ups. Secondly, we're going to be able to hold our parts in place during assembly. And finally, we're going to be able to use these as temporary clamps while we're drilling or fastening with our brad nailer, etc. So these are going to be the most common clamps you grab out in your shop. You're going to use these probably 80 to 90% of the time. At least I do. So trigger clamps, that's the first clamp you should buy, in my opinion. All right, next up, we are going to talk about ratchet clamps or ratcheting bar clamps. Same thing, different names. So the benefit of this is going to give you a little bit more control over your clamping pressure. This is going to operate similar to a vice grip. Once we get our clamp up against our material, we're going to click this down. And as you can hear, this is going to click. Each one of these clicks is going to give you slightly more pressure. This is going to be something you use regularly out in your shop as well, because not only does it offer great clamping pressure, it's also a little bit more stable than a trigger clamp. We're going to be able to set these up. They do have a little bit of a wider base here, so they're going to set up, and you're going to get good consistent glue joints with a ratcheting clamp. Now, some of the best uses for this are going to be the fact that we're going to get controlled glue ups when we're needing consistent, even pressure. These are great for repetitive clamping tasks, and you're going to find that you use these a lot on jigs and some of your shop fixtures out in your workshop. So ratchet clamps are a great middle ground type clamp. You're going to get more control, more clamping pressure than a trigger clamp, but it's going to maintain that light weight that you're not going to get when it comes to something like a parallel bar clamp. So clamp 2 you need out in your shop, definitely going to be some of these ratchet clamps. All right, next we're going to look at what's called F-style clamps. Now, for those of you who don't know why it's called an F-style clamp, well, let's take a peek here. It's because it looks like the letter F. Now, these are kind of the workhorses of most woodworking shops, except mine. This is my least favorite style clamp out in my shop, but I will tell you that they are extremely useful. The great thing about this is you can get these in a wide variety of sizes, including some really long F-style clamps. And because they use this threaded tightening device, you're going to be able to get some really good clamping pressure on your material at a very affordable price. So some of the benefits for F-style clamps are going to be, they're great for things like panel glue ups. These are going to be great for furniture assembly. And again, one of the best things that you're going to use this for is going to be anything that needs a good, strong amount of clamping pressure. If you're looking to outfit your shop with something that is going to give you extreme pressure, good jaw opening size without breaking the bank, F-style clamps are going to be the third thing I recommend for your shop. So let's move on to clamp number 4. All right, next up is going to be parallel clamps. Now, these are like the gold standard of large panel glue ups, whether it's a desktop, a tabletop, anything like that. You're going to want some parallel clamps. So these clamps are designed so that the jaws remain parallel with each other regardless of how much pressure you are putting on your workpiece. They also have a very large footprint, which allows them to remain flush and flat on your work surface. And because they use the screw type clamping grip, you're going to be able to get a ton of pressure. Large face on either end is going to distribute that pressure a little more widely on your material, making this more applicable for larger glue ups like panels and stuff like that. Now, these are heavier and more expensive than F-style clamps, but if you are doing anything that requires precision in a large panel, you're going to want parallel clamps, and that's why this is a clamp. As your woodworking progresses and you become more advanced, you're going to find you're going to stock up on these out in your shop. All right, so some of the best uses for parallel clamps are going to be, of course, large panel glue ups. These are also going to be great when you are putting together your cabinets and any kind of panels, tabletops, anything like that, whether it's large or small. Parallel clamps are the way to go. All right, next, let's talk about these. These are spring clamps. Now, these might be small, look a little simple, but man, these things are going to be invaluable out in your shop. Now, these are great for small glue ups. These are wonderful for holding material together while you're getting it fastened. And honestly, I use spring clamps a lot to hold things like my extension cord out of the way, my dust collection hose out of the way, etc. You're going to find a million uses for spring clamps, and these are by far the most affordable clamps you're going to buy out in your shop. All right, some of the best uses for these are going to be extremely light glue ups on small items. Temporary positioning to get everything aligned, and this is going to be great for holding templates in place while you might be drawing out or tracing something onto your material. So spring clamps are going to be one of those items out in your shop. You're probably going to reach for these as often, maybe even more so, than your trigger clamps. All right, and the final clamp I'm going to say you're going to need out in your shop are going to be these. Now, these are corner clamps. These are designed to hold your corners at a 90-degree angle while you get them assembled. This particular set from Pony Jorgensen has a centerpiece that slides back and forth, which allows you to utilize 2 different thicknesses of material and still achieve that 90-degree corner. You're able to put 1/2 inch on one side, 3/4 on the other, if that's the project you are in the middle of putting together. All right, and some of the best uses for this is going to be stuff like picture frames, or maybe your cabinetry that you're putting together, or any type of box that's going to require you to hold your corners together while you get it assembled. All right, so now let's talk about a few specialty type clamps. Now, we talked about corner clamps earlier, the little spring loaded by Jorgensen. Those are great. They're one-handed. They're going to allow you to hold your box or material together while you're getting it aligned and ready for assembly. But something like this is going to mount to your workbench if you want to. We can either bolt it down through the bolt holes, or we can clamp this in place. And this also has a rotating piece on the inside, which is going to give us the ability to utilize 2 different thicknesses of material. We can do a 3/4 inch piece of stock on one side and a 2x4 on the other, or it has the jaw opening to do 2x4s in that 90-degree position. I actually used this when I was putting my tote storage together to hold my corners together and make sure they were nice and square before I got the glue to set up and drove my screws in. So clamps like this are definitely a specialty item, but as your collection of clamps grows and your ability out in your shop grows, you're going to find that you're going to want specialty clamps such as this. All right, next let's look at a couple of clamps that we use when we're doing our pocket hole joinery. Now, if you do not have a pocket hole jig, number one, I would recommend you getting one, but when you buy your pocket hole jig, you're going to need some pocket hole clamps. Now, as you can see, I told you not everything in my shop is Jorgensen, but the majority of it is. I think they make great product at great price. But look, this is a PowerTech pocket hole clamp, and here's a Kreg face clamp. Now, pocket hole clamps are super important when you're putting together your pocket hole joinery. This particular clamp is going to go on the face of one side of your material, and this post right here is going to go into the actual pocket hole. So when you've got two pocket holes that you're using to put your material together, this is going to go in there. You're going to clamp this in place. It's going to make sure that as you drive your pocket hole screws in, your material doesn't shift around. And we all know during glue up, if you don't have your material clamped together, you are going to get a little slip and slide, and nothing's more frustrating than having your material move over a 1/16 of an inch and you're not square on the end. So pocket hole clamp is wonderful to have. Now this is called a face clamp. This is made by Kreg. There's a ton of them available. I'll pop a couple links down to all of this stuff on Amazon. But this particular clamp, I do like the Kreg Auto Adjust series because you don't have to change any settings. You just squeeze the trigger and it automatically adjusts. But this has two flat components, which are going to mount on the face of your material. In the example I gave you a minute ago where you're putting your pocket hole joinery together, maybe you don't have two holes and you can't use the one with the post on it. This is great for that application. The other reason that we use face clamps is to keep the face of our material square. We don't want only the ends of our joints to be square. We want it to be square on the face side as well. Face clamps are for that purpose. So pocket hole clamps, another thing that you're going to realize down the road that you need, but it's not going to be the first set of clamps you need to buy out in your shop, but be prepared. You're going to find all kinds of stuff like this as your shop grows. All right, and the final little specialty clamp I want to talk to you about is going to be this. This is a strap clamp. That's what I call it. I'm sure it's like pop, soda, cola all over the world. There's different names for this, but this is a strap clamp. This is awesome for your large glue ups like picture frames or even on box assembly. If you don't have a clamp that's going to get around, a strap clamp is the way to go. Now the four plastic pieces here are going to expand with your strap and they're going to hit on your corners, and we're going to tighten this down with another screw type assembly on this one. And this is one of those clamps that I don't use a lot out in my shop, but this expands from as small as a 4-inch box up to, I think each side of this particular strap clamp can go up to 36 inches, which is quite a large box. If you're doing a 36 by 36 and you don't want to pull out a ton of clamps to hold your project together while you're getting your screws driven in and countersunk, or you're using your brad nailer or whatever, a strap clamp is probably the way to go. It's quick, easy. You just open this strap up as far and as wide as you need it. You wrap it around your box, crank your threaded handle down, lock it in place, and you're good to go. We have talked about different types of clamps, their uses, functionality, etc. But what we didn't talk about is what you should buy and where you should spend your money. So learn from my mistake. When I started my shop, I went out and I bought nothing but trigger clamps. I bought set after set after set of trigger clamps. Quickly realized I needed something besides trigger clamps, and so my mistake is hopefully going to turn into a little bit of a recommendation for you guys. Now, this is what I would do. Set a budget. And for every $100 that you have available to spend on clamps, this is what I would do. I would spend about 15% of that on spring clamps. Now, for $15, you're going to be able to get a good set of spring clamps. It's going to come with probably anywhere from a dozen to 20 pieces, depending on what set you buy. But I think 15% on these, because these are going to be used in a ton of application out in your shop. Then I would spend about 20% of your budget, maybe 25% of your budget on something like ratchet clamps or F-style clamps, something that's going to be able to give you a little bit more flexibility and clamping pressure than trigger clamps, but this is not something that you're going to use as frequent in your shop as trigger clamps. That's why after you spend your 15 here and 20 to 25% here, that remaining percentage is 60 or 65%, spend it on trigger clamps. Don't go solely this route. but go heavy on the trigger clamps. Just my recommendation. Once you get your shop stocked out, you're gonna find you need some other clamps as you go, and you can buy those and grow your collection over the days, weeks, months, and years like I have, but that's my recommendation for starting. So, everything we've talked about today will be linked down in the description below. Now, I am not sponsored by Jorgensen here at Newcraft Workshop, but as you can see behind me, I do like their product. I feel like you're getting extremely good, high quality product at a mid-level price point, and as your shop grows and you get out and start buying a ton of product out in your shop, that's going to be important. You're going to want good quality stuff, but you don't want to break the bank. And that's all I've got for you on this particular episode. Stay tuned for this series as we continue our recommendations for building out your shop. We're going to get into some actual tools as this series progresses, as well as some other items that I think you guys need and what you need to buy first as you're developing your shop. So as always, I appreciate you guys spending a little bit of your time with me here at Newcraft Workshop. And as always, guys, I'll catch you on YouTube.